Shaylee here. So today I wanted to talk a little bit more about the medical side of our life. Unfortunately, Ethan is not able to be here with me, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about how rotations have been going. I'll probably just stick more with my perspective. I might just talk a little bit about how he's felt about the different rotations that he has completed so far. So for those of you who aren't familiar with medical school, basically the first 2 years of medical school are classes and bookwork, and the third and fourth years are more hands-on, where you do clinical rotations in the various specialties. And so this year, the third year is especially weighted towards this, and the fourth year you do more. You still have some rotations, but you also do away rotations at other sites and interviews for residency and whatnot, so it's a little bit lighter in the fourth year. So starting out this year, Ethan was in Pediatrics, and that's a 6-week rotation, and it started the beginning of July and went through about mid-August. And the way the pediatric rotation works is that every week or two you kind of switch to a different aspect of pediatrics. So he did 1 or 2 weeks in an outpatient clinic where he mainly saw like well-child exams, and it wasn't very interesting for him just because he saw a lot of healthy kids, which was good, but he didn't really learn a lot other than what's normal, which I guess is good. And then he also did time in like a peds ER, and what else was there? He also did time, I think, in a NICU. There were a couple other kind of sub-rotations that he was in during the peds rotation, that 6 weeks. And his schedule kind of varied a lot depending on where he was. So like for the first couple weeks, his hours were actually really nice. He wouldn't go in until like 8:30 or 9, and then he would get off at like 5-ish, 5:30. So that was really nice. It was nice to be able to see him in the morning, and then he got home at a decent time. Sometimes he still, depending on how much studying and downtime he had during the day, he would still have to study at night. But overall, he was mainly just able to come home and be with us and maybe study a little bit on the weekends if he had an exam coming up or something. But during his time in the pediatric emergency department, he was actually on nights. So he was basically just working all night and slept and studied whenever he could during the day. That was kind of crazy just because sometimes he also had classes during the day, so he wasn't really getting a ton of sleep during that time. Ethan really enjoyed the pediatric rotation. It's probably not something that he wants to do long term, he said, but he really enjoyed it. Kids really, really love Ethan. He enjoyed seeing all of the kids for the well-child exams and just interacting with them, and also when he was in the NICU he got to hold babies a lot, which he really enjoyed. So next was his OB-GYN rotation, and this one is kind of known for being a little bit crazier as far as hours. That definitely proved to be true with Ethan and his experience. So at this time, so he picked up with OB-GYN about mid-August, and it went through the end of September. And knowing that this would be a busy season for Ethan, this is actually when Corin and I decided to take 2 weeks and go home for the first 2 weeks of his rotation. And it worked out pretty well that we did that. It actually ended up being, while we were gone, he was on one of the busier sub-rotations. So basically he was working all day, and then he would come home and basically study for a little bit and go to sleep and then start all over again. So I'm kind of glad that we were gone for that part of it. And I don't know if I mentioned this in my last video, but towards the tail end, the last 3 days or so of our trip back there, Corin actually got croup again, and it got really, really bad, and he ended up being in the hospital for about 3 days. And that was a really, really stressful time for me, just because just being there without Ethan, and it's just never fun when your little one is hospitalized and is having trouble breathing, and it was just really stressful. honestly, looking back, I don't think I will ever do that kind of trip again. Like, I kind of have PTSD from that experience now. So we probably won't ever be doing a 2-week trip home without Ethan. It was really, really nice to see family. It was nice to have help from family. But Corin ended up being really clingy to me during that time, and then he got sick. That just kind of made the trip stressful. And actually we ended up flying Ethan out the day that we were supposed to leave because he was in the hospital. We had to postpone coming home, and so Ethan flew out for just a day. And we are so glad that we did that because we just needed to see him, and we just needed to be together as a family. And so then we flew back on a Sunday, and Ethan unfortunately had to start bright and early Monday the next morning. So some of the other kind of sub-rotations for OB-GYN, there was like an outpatient clinic, an outpatient, just basically where you see regular OB-GYN stuff. And then there was also like an outpatient surgery section. And for the most part, I feel like the rest of OB-GYN, when we were home during it, the last 4 weeks, his hours were pretty much 5 to 6 in the morning to about 6 at night. Well, 5 to 6 at night. So they were pretty long days. And for me, it didn't seem as long as it was for Ethan, obviously. It kind of sucked that we couldn't see him in the morning. But Ethan was exhausted the entire time, just because it's so hard to get up. He's probably waking up, I think, at like 4 in the morning, and just getting ready real quick and go into work. And then he was busy a lot during the day. I think he usually got most of his studying done during the day. He usually had to just tie up a couple things when he got home, but yeah, for the most part, he was gone from dawn to dusk, and it wasn't an incredibly fun time just because he was exhausted. I was exhausted because I had a lot less help with Corin. And overall, Ethan, again, enjoyed this rotation. He enjoyed being able to see the different kind of subspecialties within OB-GYN. But again, he didn't really feel like he called to it, like he would really want to do that the rest of his life. And which honestly, I am okay with that because the hours for OB-GYN suck. He didn't really have to be on call, but there were a couple times where he had to be there for just longer to kind of simulate an on-call experience. But yeah, so the hours kind of sucked for OB-GYN. But right now he's actually on the psychiatric rotation. And the hours for this are so much nicer. He goes in, he usually has to be there about 8:30, and then he gets off usually about 2, unless he has some lectures or some other activities that he has to do, which for the first 3 weeks, which is the end of the 3rd week, supposedly it's heavily weighted with lectures and extra activities. We're hoping that next week, without as many lectures and activities, that he'll just be able to come home at about 2 every day and get some studying done and just be with us the rest of the evening. It definitely has been nice to be able to see him in the morning and more in the afternoon. Although I will say, when he is home, when he does come home at like 2 or 3 or something, it is so hard for me to leave him alone because I just want to sit with him and talk with him, and it's hard for Corin to leave him alone because Corin's missed him all day and he just wants to play with his daddy. So it's kind of a bittersweet scenario. Definitely rather have him here, but it is really hard for us to leave him alone. And one thing that Ethan wasn't really expecting from psych, that he is just incredibly mentally exhausted, just because he's seeing a lot of patients who obviously need to be in a psychiatric facility, so it just takes a lot more mental energy to deal with them and to try to steer them clear of hurting themselves or others. And at the facility that he's actually at right now, it's kind of an interim where people usually only stay about a week or so, and so he's seen a lot. And people are trying to escape all the time, and so dealing with this kind of patient population, it's just been mentally exhausting for him. And he's kind of looking forward to, he's really been enjoying psych. Again, it's not something that he really wants to do long term, although he really does like the hours. But he's definitely looking forward to doing family medicine, which is his next rotation, which will be, I think, about mid-November through December. And so he's looking forward to get to that and seeing what he thinks of that. And also the hours for family medicine should just be business hours again. Shouldn't have any weekends or really early mornings or late nights. So he's really looking forward to that. As am I, of course, because honestly it's been really, really nice the past few weeks for him to just be able to go later in the morning, so at least Corin can, see him in the morning. And it's been nice to have Ethan's help with him in some afternoons and also in the evenings. So that's where we are right now in the school year. I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I'm hoping to do a video with Ethan possibly the end of December, kind of during Christmas break, but we'll see. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!